Negotiations between Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia concerning the latter's Renaissance Dam fell apart in November 2017 when officials from Cairo walked away from the talks. It is presumed that the parties failed to reach an agreement on the impact assessment of the project. The scale of the impasse is unique, as it not only deals with the Renaissance Dam, but also sets a legal precedent for future upstream projects and thereby affects the geopolitical balance between Egypt and Ethiopia. My name is Shirvan and welcome to Caspian Report. With a total length of about 6,850 kilometers, the Nile is often credited as the longest river in the world, and although much of the river is not commercially navigable, it provides valuable freshwater that is used for domestic, agricultural, and industrial purposes. However, cooperation along the river differs widely since every nation seeks to maximize its share of the water. As such, the Nile is also a source of regular disputes over water rights and distribution in the African continent. For Cairo, the stakes are especially high because the river forms the lifeline of the country. The Nile is the country's primary source of fresh water for irrigation and agriculture. About 90% of Egypt's water supply is provided by the Nile, and almost 99% of the total 95 million Egyptians reside along the narrow banks of the river, which extends from the Aswan High Dam in the south to the Mediterranean shores in the north. Only a handful of nations are so completely reliant on a single river as much as Egypt. To make matters even worse, the Nile does not originate in the Mediterranean. Instead, its two main tributaries flow from sources in Central and East Africa across a number of countries before reaching Cairo in the north. More specifically, nearly 85% of the water that flows into the Nile River in Egypt comes from the highlands of Ethiopia through the Blue Nile. The remainder comes from the White Nile, whose source originates in Lake Victoria. Without the Blue Nile, Egypt, for all its glory and history, could not exist. So it's not surprising that the country reacts with great hostility to infrastructure projects in the upstream territories. Such ventures, after all, could disrupt the distribution of water and affect the livelihoods of millions of Egyptians. In fact, the country barely gets by with the water it already has. Hydrological statistics place the country's per capita share of fresh water at an average of 660 cubic meters of water, which is higher than the other Arab nations but still low on a global scale. These numbers, however, will depreciate in time as Egypt's population is expected to skyrocket from 95 million in 2017 to 151 million by 2050. This will further complicate Egypt's management of its freshwater supply and squeeze its people and precious farmlands. For much of the 20th century, Egypt's supremacy over the Nile was legally guaranteed by the Waters Agreement of 1929 and 1959, which assured the country a disproportionately large share of the water. However, the accords were never signed or recognized by the government in Addis Ababa, and this became the single most contentious dispute between Egypt and Ethiopia. Then, in April 2011, Addis Ababa started building the Grand Ethiopia Renaissance Dam in the western edge of the country. Construction is still ongoing, but at a price tag of nearly $5 billion, it will be the biggest and most expensive hydroelectric project in Africa. It will generate at least 6,450 megawatts of power, which is an enormous boost to Ethiopia's current output of 4,000 megawatts. Depending on the usage, that amount of additional energy can power about 6 million homes. This is of course a remarkable opportunity for 73% of Ethiopia's 102 million people who have no access to electricity. For Cairo, however, the Renaissance Dam is a disaster in the making, and relations with Ethiopia regressed immediately after. Some Egyptian military officers even suggested bombing the project area in Ethiopia, which did not help to ease tensions. As detrimental as the threat was, it captures the sentiment in Cairo, which fears that the Ethiopian project will impede on Egypt's share of the Nile. Since the announcement of the Renaissance Dam, both sides have sought to resolve their differences by the international practices of the Helsinki Rules of 1966 on the uses of the waters of international rivers. But here too, Egyptian and Ethiopian interpretations of two legal concepts conflicted with one another. Article 4 of the Helsinki Rules emphasized the reasonable and equitable distribution of water, while Article 10 stressed the obligation not to cause substantial injury. Cairo insisted that Article 10 gives it a say in upstream projects, such as the Renaissance Dam, while Addis Ababa stressed that Article 4 implies that it should have a voice in downstream projects because Egyptian ventures, such as the Aswan High Dam, could impact the equitable distribution of water. Both sides made valid points, but the whole ordeal became a chicken or the egg quandary. A larger legal framework was set up in 1999 when the riparian states formed the Nile Basin Initiative, which was tasked to resolve the disputes and enhance cooperation on the water resources of the Nile Basin. But even after a decade of talks, the participants still failed to agree on the legal terms. Eventually, in March 2015, after years of back and forth diplomacy, officials from Egypt, Ethiopia, and Sudan revitalized their efforts to resolve the dispute and signed the Declaration of Principles. In this modern format, Egypt no longer opposes the construction of the Renaissance Dam since it's pretty much inevitable. Rather, the current negotiations focus on the technical terms. For instance, one of the contentious points concerns the impact of the Renaissance Dam on Egypt, which depends on how fast Ethiopia fills the reservoir. With a storage capacity of 74 billion cubic meters, the Renaissance Dam's reservoir is equal to the annual share of water of Sudan and Egypt combined. The faster it is filled, the faster Ethiopia can reap the benefits of the project. But an accelerated filling process will also block more water and put greater pressure on the downstream nations. Obviously, Egypt wants the filling process to span 15 years, which would minimize its losses. And as trivial as these details seem, they could have an enormous impact. One study by the Cairo University estimated that Egypt would lose about half of its farmlands if the Renaissance Dam is filled in a period of 3 years, while a 6-year fill would result in a 17% loss of cultivated lands. Another study estimated that for every reduction of 1 billion cubic meters of water, Egypt would lose about 200,000 acres of farmlands, which would affect the livelihoods of 1 million people. For a nation where a quarter of the workforce is employed in the agricultural sector, these are unsettling projections. To settle this technical dispute, Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia established a trilateral committee that was tasked to study the repercussions of the Renaissance Dam. The committee chose 2 French consultancy firms to conduct a technical study on the environmental, economic, and social impact of the Renaissance Dam on the downstream nations of Egypt and Sudan. The committee agreed to the terms and the method of the studies and set the deadline for August 2017. Plus, the committee was given an additional 4 months to implement the results of the study, and this is where everything fell apart. Every side tried to steer the research results towards their own political goals. Cairo wanted the technical studies to prove the negative impact of the Renaissance Dam on Egypt's water security and how the project would undermine the durability of its agricultural lands in the Nile Delta, as well as the drop in electricity generation along the Aswan High Dam. Meanwhile, Ethiopia sought to change the research findings that depicted the Renaissance Dam in a positive light and how it actually contributed to regional security. The situation was further complicated by Sudan, which during the negotiations raised questions on the mechanisms to measure its share of the water distribution. Officials from Sudan are more positive than their Egyptian counterparts. The Sudanese believe that the water supply created by the Renaissance Dam will improve Sudan's irrigation and yield in more agricultural output. But the technical question over the mechanism greatly upset officials in Cairo, because devising such technicalities would require time, which Egypt is running out of. As such, in November 2017, the Egyptian delegation abandoned the negotiations. What exactly Cairo hopes to do next is unclear. It has proposed to exclude Sudan from the talks, and it has pleaded to the Arab League partners, the World Bank, and even the United Nations, but none of it has had any real-life impact on the situation. And as frustrated as Egyptian policymakers are, there is very little they can do about it. Egypt has no leverage on Ethiopia, and regardless of its objections, construction on the dam has continued. As of this writing, about 70% of the Renaissance Dam is complete, and it is expected to be commissioned by October 2018. Upon completion, Addis Ababa will start the filling process regardless of the talks. This places Cairo in a corner because it will have to synchronize the operation of the Aswan Dam with Ethiopia's Renaissance Dam as the reservoir of the latter is filled. So Cairo will come back to the negotiations. But for Egypt, the Nile dispute is not just about the Renaissance Dam. Egyptian policymakers believe that the Ethiopian dam is just one of the many large-scale projects that Addis Ababa is planning to construct along the Nile River. So for both parties, the Renaissance Dam sets a precedent. As an upstream nation, at least 22 rivers originate in Ethiopia and flow to its immediate neighbors. There is enormous long-term potential in the utilization of these rivers, and it grants Addis Ababa geopolitical leverage in the region. However, such exploits will come at the expense of the other countries that share the basin. This, above everything else, is why Cairo is taking such a tough stance on the Renaissance Dam. Egypt seeks to capitulate Ethiopia into accepting its approval, which would set a jurisprudential precedent and would allow Cairo to preserve its leverage in future disputes and projects. Nevertheless, rather than a direct confrontation, Cairo could take a different attitude to the dispute. For one, Egypt needs to decrease its dependency on the Nile by constructing water treatment and desalination plants. Furthermore, to negotiate a compromise, not on the Renaissance Dam but on future projects, Cairo must compensate for Ethiopia's loss in hydroelectric power generation. This could be accomplished by securing loans from the World Bank and Saudi Arabia to fund the construction of solar power plants in Ethiopia. Such renewable plants could substitute for the electricity generation from the dams. Ethiopia's northern territories and the Ogaden Plateau to the east are especially promising areas for future solar power plants. In return for such loans, a legal document would have to be drafted to set a condition that requires both sides to approve and consult one another when constructing large-scale projects along the Nile River. This, of course, would imply for both upstream and downstream projects. The overall details would have to be worked out, but such mutual beneficial compromises would address Ethiopia's electricity generation and reassure Egypt of a sustainable flow of water. However, as is the case with most disputes, resolutions are not always so forthright. Egypt and Ethiopia have a remarkable long historical rivalry, and there is very little trust between the two, which impedes a diplomatic solution. We will go over the details of this historical rivalry in another report. For now, this was a Caspian report by me, Shirvan. I want to thank our contributors on Patreon for giving us the resources to produce reports like this. And if you want to support our channel to remain independent, visit patreon.com/CaspianReport and consider joining our platform. We also have some interesting perks there, like polls, PDF files, etc. You can also make anonymous donations through cryptocurrencies. See the description for our Bitcoin and Ether addresses. Anyway, thank you for your time, take care, and Sarol.